Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the Sunday question and answer videos that I've been doing on Sundays for the last couple months. The first Sunday of every month, I do Subscriber Sunday where people send in photos. The rest of the Sundays, I'm doing these question and answer videos. You're welcome to ask a question down in the comments below, and I'll go through them every week and pick some to answer that I think help the group the most. One thing I did was I added events for the fall onto my Facebook page. If you don't follow me on Facebook, it's just facebook.com/HortTube. I put the 4 events that I have so far for the fall on the events page on there. And September 27th, I'm at Dearness Gardens in Huntersville. That's close to Charlotte, North Carolina. And then on the 28th, I'm at Logan's in Raleigh. And on October 4th, I'm at Wingard's Nursery in Lexington, South Carolina. And then on October 5th, I'm at the Family Tree in Snellville, Georgia, which is close to Atlanta. All of those events are at 10 a.m. I'm going over lots of foundation plants. I'll have giveaways with me. I'll stick around and answer questions for a while. And yeah, help you shop. You know, I'll be at these places for a little while each of those days, but those events are on my Facebook page, so go check those out. Let's get to some of the questions here. I get a lot of questions about boxwoods, you know, browning out just one branch at the time, and a lot of folks think that's boxwood blight, but boxwood blight is a fungal disease. If you haven't heard of it, there's a fungal disease that's attacking boxwoods called boxwood blight. It's kind of scary. It kills boxwoods very quickly, but if you were to have that, it kind of attacks the entire plant at once. It has a very distinct look. It does brown the plant out, but it's kind of the whole plant at one time. That's one branch at the time thing is definitely roots, and I've talked about this on other plants. If you see one branch at the time dying, something's going on below the soil. Either the plant's staying too wet, and boxwoods are susceptible to Phytophthora root rot. So that'd be one way that a single root at the time would be dying below the ground, and then what you would see on top is individual branches dying. Also, it could be a vole. Something's damaging the roots on them. Typically, I'll cut that stuff out. I'll go in and maybe pull back my old mulch and see if there's any holes around the base of it, because that would be an indicator that you have voles. Remulch them. Don't mulch them too heavy if you think it's a place that actually stays too wet, and try to dry them out. Maybe, I don't know if irrigation from something else is hitting them or that kind of thing, but we do want to keep our boxwoods not dry, but make sure they're drying out between rains and waterings. That could be it. Somebody asked me about leaf blowing on plants, where they see landscapers pruning on plants and then taking leaf blowers and just hammering away with to get all the branches and everything off of them. I think that would be a plant to plant issue. I probably have half the plants in this yard. I could go up with a leaf blower and knock limbs out of them with that kind of force. And then a lot of things that could be damaged from it. So I think hopefully that landscaper knows which ones they can do and which ones they can't. I'm sure that there are a lot of super professional landscapers out there. I'm a North Carolina certified landscape contractor, and I keep my license up, and I go to classes every year. And I don't do a lot of landscape installation anymore, but I do try to keep that up, and I do try to have some professionalism about it. And there's some of both, just like in every business. You have great landscape contractors out there, and then guys but the low cost of entry into landscaping can create problems. You're just a pickup and a shovel and a wheelbarrow away from calling yourself a landscaper, and that can have some problems, and some of those guys are going to know, and some of them aren't. But like I say, that's true with any profession. I think you're going to get, if you happen to hire somebody and you think they seem professional, make sure you're recommending them to other people, and and helping out with that. Make sure we're promoting the guys that are out there learning. I knew that when I had my garden center. I called them landscapers in training, guys who were starting off and didn't really know a whole lot, but they would spend a lot of time asking me questions, and I could just tell this guy is he's really, or gal or whatever, is somebody who's really putting the time in to learn. I just went on too long about that, but yeah, like I say, any profession, you have great people, and then you have guys that or gals that aren't just trying to earn a buck as quick as possible. So lots of questions about my moving. Yes, if you haven't watched any of the videos, I am selling this house that I have been re-landscaping for a while, and I am moving to Raleigh, where I actually grew up. You'll see lots of videos coming from that. There was a question that kind of relate to that. Somebody lives in Georgia and their soil drains too well. So eastern Georgia. Georgia's similar to North Carolina, where we have, you have a mountainous area, and then you have a Piedmont where it's solid clay, and then you have the sand hills where it gets super sandy toward the coast, and the soil drains really, really well down there. Some great farmland down there around the rivers and things, but soil does drain extremely fast. I'm kind of in the middle. Where I live is kind of, there's a little bit of sand on top, but you very quickly still hit the red clay. But there are areas probably in East Georgia where, I mean, you just pour water on it all day long, and the soil, it just disappears quickly. I'm going to address that at the new place I'm moving to. I'm going to just put like 2 inches of compost down. Took me 20 years at this yard to create the soil that I've created here, and the soil's fantastic now, but it takes a long time to build soil. I don't think I'm going to be as patient at the new place. I'm just going to put down like 2 inches of compost. I'll show you when that happens. I'm going to go there. The first videos you're going to see are soil testing videos and fall garden. I'm going to have my fall vegetable garden there, and then you'll see pretty quickly I'm going to add stuff and mulch this place and try to build that soil up as quick as possible to make sure that the things I'm putting in next year, landscaping that space, all do well. But that will slow the water down. That compost, you got to put some organic material on top of that sand to start to slow, at least to get that water to slow down a bit as it's moving through. Somebody asked about screening plants in the shade in zone 7. That olive Martini ELAEAGNUS that I put in back here, and I get questions for an update video, and I'll shoot an update video before I leave here. They haven't grown a tremendous amount over there, but I had pruned them a couple times to get them fuller. Olive Martini ELAEAGNUS, great choice in the shade. It's variegated, so it's super bright. CHINDO VIBURNUM does okay in the shade. You need to do a little bit of top pruning on it occasionally, but that's a tough plant. Of course, Ligustrum, sun or shade or wet or dry, kind of doesn't matter. My go-to, my favorite screening plant in the shade would definitely, in zone 7, would definitely be a camellia. Camellia japonicas, Camellia sasanquas. They're slow growing, and so a little bit of patience, and you end up with winter flowers on your screening plants. But camellias for sure for me. Somebody asked about a redbud being 10 feet from the house. It would be variety dependent. My forest pansy redbud, which has been in several videos, is probably 15 feet from this porch right here, and the limbs are all the way to the house. So keep that in mind. Some of the newer weeping varieties, definitely, heck, you could put some of those within 4 or 5 feet of the house probably. But a regular green redbud, or one of the Chinese redbuds probably, or like forest pansy, I'd probably want it a little more than 10, maybe 12 feet away from the foundation, just to give, because they grow like this. They grow with a kind of a spreading weeping canopy like that. They're not upright like that. So somebody asked about butterfly bushes being invasive, and butterfly bushes do seed themselves. Not all of them, but lots of especially older varieties of butterfly bushes will seed themselves, which I guess by default that makes them invasive. But the thing is, it's a full sun plant, and so it has to come up in a space that's in the full sun, or it just won't perform very well. It won't be able to reseed itself again. So I find that, yes, I will occasionally see a butterfly bush come up from seed, but they're not going to take over the world. They're not going to compete with any of our native plants because they just absolutely can't take any of the shade. So they're never going to show up in wooded spaces. They're never going to be invasive to my, to the plants that are native to my place in North Carolina. It might be somewhere else in the country. They could be, but the plants that I consider to be invasive and problematic are ones that can actually get out in the wooded areas and compete with our natives. If you want to look up the most troubling invasive right this minute in my state is Japanese stiltgrass, and I would imagine it's the entire southeast. I've never seen anything take over spaces like this weed is. It's a weed, grows about this tall, kills basically everything on the understory in the wooded spaces. When I bike and walk now, you can just see acres and acres and acres of Japanese stiltgrass. It's killing all the native ferns, all the ground covers. I would imagine you know, all of our native flora and fauna that stays this tall is really in trouble from this weed, and it seeds itself by the thousands. So that's the ones, I make everything such a long answer, but that's the ones that concern me, or ones that can grow in the woods. Bradford pears have, you know, have become a weed like that and can compete with our native trees, and they're quite troubling, and they grow faster than everything else. So if you clear cut a space, Bradford pears could come back faster than the pines and everything else in the future. So that one's also problematic. Let's see, we'll get one more before we're done. Somebody asked about potting citrus plants in containers. There's always this recommendation for citrus plants that you have to have, you know, lots and lots of nitrogen, and that's true. What I do on plants that have specific needs like that, I'll typically give them like a well-balanced fertilizer and not worry so much about whether it's a citrus fertilizer or a, you know, what rose fertilizer or whatever. And then I'll give them that thing separately that is the extra thing they need. So in the case of citrus, I just give them a well-balanced fertilizer that I would use on any of my container plants, whatever that is. And then I know they need iron. They're a low pH plant, and usually that's an indicator that that's going to be an iron feeder. That's true with citrus, and a nitrogen feeder. So I'd buy a little bag of ironite, which you can get on Amazon. And instead of using iron tone, I think they said they use, I use ironite, which is great. It's a great product, and put some of that a few times a year in the container. And then buy a straight urea nitrogen fertilizer, 4600. I think that would be one you could pop up on Amazon if you entered that. 4600 fertilizer. Have to be super careful with a straight nitrogen fertilizer not to burn your plant. So, you know, use the low rate on it until you're comfortable with it. But well-balanced fertilizer, and then add the two things that we know that citrus need extra, which is nitrogen and iron. So that'll be it for this week. Ask any questions you have at the bottom of this one. If there's not enough from this one, I'll go back and grab a few more from that list from 2 weeks ago. Great list of questions, guys. Thanks for participating.